Hello, everybody. How are you? Today, I wanted to come in and have a conversation about protein and its role in blood sugars, because as we've been using our continuous glucose monitor in our CGM or continuous glucose monitor program, it's one of the things that comes up often. A lot of times, the conversation around blood sugar is often that you just need to make sure you're getting in protein or get in more protein, make sure you have protein to protect your carbs, make sure you have protein, et cetera, et cetera. But protein, like everything, it does need to be personalized, and not all proteins are going to work the same. And an excess of protein is just like an excess of anything, and it can also negatively impact your blood sugar. So that was my topic that I wanted to go over today. If there are any questions or anything business-wise that comes up, please feel free to use this time as well. You can send me a message if you're excited about this topic, or if you have anything you want to make sure that I answer, happy to do so. So let's dive into this a little bit further. And so things that we know to be true, carbohydrates, unprotected carbohydrates, and especially low fiber carbohydrates are going to dramatically impact blood sugar in an elevation way, right? So the consumption of them, they are sugar, they go into the body, we're going to see a sugar response there. So one of the things that we often talk about and can be so valuable in helping, whether it's somebody who is pre-diabetic or diabetic, whether we're working on blood sugars for helping redress migraines, just whatever we're working on this piece, is always coming in and making sure that we protect our carbohydrates. So one of the ways that we can protect our carbohydrates is making sure that we have adequate protein, and not even just adequate, that we have optimal protein intake. But what is that optimal protein intake? So when we look at that optimization, that protein optimization there, we want to look at the quality of it, the quantity of it, because having too much at one time at that eating occasion can also elevate the blood sugar. So that's important for us to note. The other thing is that when we are taking in proteins, depending on how the body is able to break them down and utilize them, that's also going to impact how actually protective they can be. So if we're dealing with a patient, this is why we have to personalize it. If we're dealing with a patient who doesn't have good digestion, if there are issues with absorption, if there are issues with stomach acid, if there are issues, just a variety of how they break down and absorb those proteins, then that can mean that that doesn't give the same protective indication. And so we can actually see that despite somebody consuming protein, we're sitting there saying, wait, why do we see their, time in range, or why do we see them, going outside of their time in range on the continuous glucose monitor on that piece. And so that is something that can be very helpful for us to look at and to explore. Hey, if somebody is getting protein, healthy fats, et cetera, in with their carbohydrates, perhaps the digestion is not happening at an appropriate pace. So some interventions there could be, maybe they need digestive enzymes, maybe they're on an acid suppressing medication, and we need to explore what the implications are there. Maybe there are certain types of proteins that are not as easily broken down and absorbed for them, but others are. Maybe from an animal protein standpoint, they might do better with, say, eggs as opposed to having beef, or they might do better, we could just explore, differences that are there. And then also, of course, looking at if they're consuming plant proteins and nuts and seeds, or hemp seed. I was mentioning seeds before. If they're consuming them in grains, etc., then maybe the combination of getting the protein in with the carbohydrate isn't working as effectively for them. Just in terms of optimizing blood sugar. So that's where that personalization is really going to be important. Now, we do have our protein evaluation. It's one that we're actually in the process of updating right now. So we'll have a new version of it coming out before the end of the year. And in that protein evaluation, we will be, we already do show you how to calculate and how to look at your protein intake across the board, and being able to how to personalize that. And so one of the things that we want to look at is not having somebody look at meeting their protein needs in their day, but we actually may need to sort of look at the protein needs at particular times in the day, as well as it relates to their blood sugar. So if there are particular times of the day, I'm thinking about, like, say, the middle of the afternoon when energy is going down like that, they may require a higher amount of their protein at that point in time. At the same time in the morning, on waking, if we see some of the dawn effect or, some of these others, that we may need to adjust the protein intake. So if you take their aggregate, if they need 100 grams, and we're breaking that up into 5 servings, into 5 pit stops, not every pit stop necessarily needs the same amount of protein. And so these are things that, as we're wearing a continuous glucose monitor, we're going to be able to experiment with the patient. Likewise, in terms of things like on a night where they haven't had good sleep, maybe on a day where they've had a more intense workout, maybe the next day when they're in muscle recovery. So all of these things are going to be factors. So one of the things that I just wanted to pop in and open the door up to today is that conversation of, it's really important to look at and to be able to personalize our protein intake as we are. And one of the tools we can do to do that is the continuous glucose monitor in collaboration with the protein evaluation. And of course, then we have other tools to help, with those protein choices. So were there any questions that I see? We've got quite a few people. Okay, great. Yes. So, and this is really actually very important when you're looking at hormones as well. Yeah, absolutely on that part. Okay. Sorry, we're having a little emergency here. I might need to call this one, but at least we got the good information in. Okay. All right, well, if I'm not getting any questions, thank you. I just wanted to share a little bit about that from a protein standpoint and blood sugars. And if you do have additional questions that come up as you start to think about this, please feel free to either ask them here or you can send us a note over at thebetternutritionprogram.com. Thanks, you can chat us there too. Okay, bye.